Hey, everybody, you can call in so that you can go to the Shaquille O'Neal event. I know you want to go. All right, everybody, God bless you. We'll work on having a great show.
30 seconds.
When you leave your vehicle, remember to always take your keys or key fob with you and lock the doors. If you suspect auto theft, contact the National Insurance Crime Bureau at 1-800-TEL-NICB. That's 1-800-TEL-NICB, or visit our website at www.nicb.org. A public service message from the
8 seconds.
Okay.
This is WCPT 820.
Mic going hot.
This is the Santita.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. So glad to be with you today. What did you think about New Hampshire? Wow, tremendous, tremendous, tremendous. You know, it's really part of a 4 primary caucus club that really kicks off the election season. What do you think about what happened last night? Bernie, 2-0, if you count the popular vote. Well, he won yesterday, but Pete Buttigieg was nipping at his heels. And guess what? Amy Klobuchar, she had a tremendous showing. And so now you've got, but Elizabeth Warren was right behind her. You really have a cluster of progressives and moderates. Wow. So what do you think? You let me know what you think about yesterday and what this portends, what this means for Nevada. Now, of course, before the results were even in, Joe Biden left. He was hoping to, needing to, have made a better showing. He came in 5th. Wow. So, let's talk about it, everybody. And we are going to have some ticket giveaways today. We got a lot of stuff we're giving away at WCPT. A little bit later on in the show, we're going to give you tickets to American in Paris. But right now, we want you to call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, because guess what? We are going to be giving tickets away to this NBA event with Shaquille O'Neal. That's right. And Judge Greg Mathis and NBA Hall of Famers Isaiah Thomas and Dave Bing and Dougie Fresh. It's going to be tomorrow night at the Soldier Field in the United Room, in the United Club room. So call us at 773-763-WCPT if you want some tickets so you can go to that. We're going to be there tomorrow night. It's going to be fantastic. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. What happened? Who was the winner? Who was the loser? Were you surprised by the results? They keep saying, the mainstream media keep saying that, well, Bernie did not do as well as he did the last time. Well, last time round in 2016, it was a very different field. So we want to talk with our experts about that. And you really had 2 different points of view that were being represented. Now, the field is much more, it's a much larger field. It's a much larger field. And so we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see what you think, what you believe to have been the real case. We're going to bring up John Nichols from The Nation magazine in just a couple of minutes because he is up in New Hampshire. And I want to know what it was like on the ground there. How people, Vidalia, did you watch any of the results?
No.
You're waiting for South Carolina.
Yes.
Well, everybody's waiting for South Carolina because that will determine how well we have to see how Pete Buttigieg is going to do with the black community, Amy Klobuchar, and Tom Steyer. How will he do? Because you can't become the Democratic nominee without the black vote, the enthusiastic black vote, and that was something that is something that that black vote is the base of support for Joe Biden. But he's having a problem because there is a split in the black vote between our elders and the youngins. The young people, young African Americans are trending toward Bernie. The elders are moving toward Biden. But will that be the case in a couple of weeks? It's February 29th. We cannot wait. It's going to be on a Saturday. It's going to be on and cracking in South Carolina, but it was on and cracking in New Hampshire.
Yes.
It sure was. It sure was. So everybody, winners and losers. And Joe Biden was not even there last night. Oh, you felt that he should have been there. And then, of course, in the second hour, we're taking these issues that that we need to be voting on. You know, when you vote, don't just vote for a person, vote for an issue that means something to you.
Yes.
Parental leave is a really, really big issue. It is. And many women we don't have it in the United States. We don't have it. I mean, you have other countries like, what is it, Estonia? They get 84 full weeks, 166 weeks total when you have a baby. You get that time off to take care of your child. Austria, you get 49 weeks, 60 weeks total. Japan, you get 58 weeks total. Sweden, 56 weeks total. The United States, zero. So women who have had C-sections, which is major surgery, they're literally going back to work, and they might be waitresses. They're having to lift. You're not supposed to lift anything when you have been cut there. You're not. And so women are literally putting their lives at risk because they cannot afford not to work. Even though they've got to work when they've got to go home. I was reading an account in The Guardian, this woman whose husband is an optician, she's a waitress. They're trying to make it every day, and she had a C-section, and she had to go right back to work. She said, I'm pumping my breast milk during the breaks, and I'm scared to death all throughout my shift because I'm lifting, and I'm afraid that my C-section stitching is going to rip apart. We've got to talk about that. So when we are looking at the 2020 election, it's not just about who you like. It's about what you need. So we're going to talk about that. But let's run through a few of these headlines, Lady B, because boy, oh boy, wow. This is a really exciting election.
Yes.
It's a very exciting election. And so everybody call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. And let us know what you think. And then we're going to also give away some of these tickets to this event tomorrow night. Lady B already has her new fabulous outfit and she can't wait to see Judge Greg Mathis and Shaquille O'Neal and Isaiah Thomas and Dave Bing and Dougie Fresh. Everybody last night, Bernie Sanders emerged victorious in New Hampshire. He was declared the winner of the Democratic presidential primary in New Hampshire last night, less than 3 hours after the polls closed in the Granite State. He said, our victory tonight is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump. But it seems that Democrats are really, they want to get Donald Trump out, but they don't know which way they want to go. Are they going to choose a moderate who's going to be a standard bearer for the party, or will they choose a progressive? Or maybe they'll choose both, or will we have a brokered convention? Because there is more and more talk of that. If that happens, what will that mean? Joe Biden was dealt a major blow by a 5th place finish. Nobody expected that, and he left town before he could really, really talk about it. They're calling it clomentum. That's Amy Klobuchar. She said she's punching above her weight. She's absolutely right. She is surprising more and more people all the time. But you know, it was interesting. There was a New Hampshire voter who was on MSNBC's Ari Melber's show. And she said she voted for Senator Bernie Sanders because of MSNBC's coverage of his candidacy. She said, you're not treating him well. So that made me vote for him. She said, I want to say, the reason I went for Bernie is MSNBC. And he said, go on, Ari Melber. The voter replied, I think it is completely cynical to say that he has lost 50% of his vote from the last time when there were 2 candidates. This time there are multiple wonderful candidates that would be great candidates and people that we could unify behind. The kind of stop Bernie momentum and cynicism that I heard from a number of people, it made me so angry. So I said, Bernie's got my vote. There's some of that too, and then of course we are waiting for the Nevada caucuses. What will happen there, and will they use any apps to help count the vote? Oh, Andrew Yang bowed out of the race. But you know, he brought up some really fresh ideas, particularly as it relates to universal basic income, and so we just thank him because he really did have an historic race. This was the first time that we really saw an Asian American candidate in the top tier. And so I tip my hat off to him for a whole lot of reasons, for bringing fresh ideas and for really helping us to see what the world looks like. And that's a good thing. Well, you know, mega billionaire Bloomberg has a $350 million ad spending blitz, and some people are saying that this is what plutocracy looks like. But other people saying, they're saying other things about him too, because there is something that is circulating on social media about what he said with respect to stop and frisk. See, he was unapologetic about stop and frisk. Unapologetic. In fact, at the Aspen Institute out in Colorado, he was speaking. He was speaking, and he said, just take the description, Xerox it, and pass it out to all the cops. They are male minority 16 to 25. That's right. That's true in New York. That's true in virtually every city. Wow. That's what he was using to justify his stop and frisk policy. Oh, and he's been apologetic about it. At least, certainly he's not been apologetic. He has apologized for it. But people are very, very, very angry about it. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But that is also part of the conversation because they pulled the audio from the Aspen Institute. Some of it is inaudible, but it's unmistakably his voice. So what do you think about that, everybody? Did you know that we have a 35-year high of worker strike activity under President Trump? Did you know that? We've had more strikes under him. So, call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. I want to know what you think about what happened in New Hampshire. What does this mean going forward? These are two states that represent America, just not all of America. Yes, are they very white? Sure. But they do represent the United States. Now we're going to see the rest of the United States. Yes. Nevada is 19%. 19% of the voters in this caucus will be Latina and Latino. And then you will have 13% who are black. 60+% are white. Now when you get to South Carolina, 60+%, although 26.5% of the state is African American, 60+% of the voters in the Democratic race are black. So New Hampshire and Iowa, that's a part of America. It's just not all of America. So we're going to see much more at the end of the month. I think we'll have a better view of the strengths and the challenges facing all of the candidates. Do you know Ladysmith Black Mambazo? Fantastic group out of South Africa, and they were popularized through by the great Paul Simon. Okay, yes. Well, the founder of the group, Joseph Shabalala, he died. He was the guy in the front.
Right.
Oh yeah. They said, our founder, our teacher, and most importantly, our father left us today for eternal peace. He died in a hospital in Pretoria, South Africa. God bless him, and we thank them for the fantastic a cappella songs from the Zulu nation that became hugely popular in South Africa, and it was a gift to the world. So our blessings go out to them today. All right, everybody, call us at 773-763-9278. I have like several of my favorite friends. We have a panel here, but I had to go to John Nichols first from The Nation because, we were in, along with Reverend Frank Watkins, who's really like one of our political gurus. We were in New Hampshire more than 30 years ago, trudging through the snow and the cold. And I want to know what he saw up there. And, of course, rounding out this panel, Attorney Robert Patillo, and we are so excited about having him here. Who else do we have over here? Robert Patillo and Latasha Brown, my girl from Black Voters Matter. I know she's got a lot to say, but let's start off with you, John Nichols. How you doing, John Nichols, up there in New Hampshire? Or are you someplace else right now?
Oh, no, I haven't left New Hampshire yet.
John Nichols, what happened up there?
Well, what happened is that...
oh, hold on, John. We need to clean up your line because we're getting a lot of feedback. Just hold on one moment. We're going to work that out. Do you think it's John, or do you think it might be someone else, Lady B? Okay, well, in the meantime, continue to call me while she works that out. Let me go to Denise. How you doing, Denise? Oh, Denise? Okay, Lady B, I was trying to get Denise on the first line. Okay, Denise? Okay, let me put her on hold. All right. We're just having some technical difficulties this morning, but you know this is live radio and this happens. So call us, continue to call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Do we have John Nichols back? Okay, John Nichols?
Sister, are you there?
Oh, my brother. See, you all have to understand. We are family.
Each other. We can hear each other.
John, give us the story about New Hampshire, because you know I'm just trying to figure out if the mainstream media is spinning it the right way.
Of course they're not. Very blunt with you.
Okay.
Here's a couple key things. Well, you know, you've been around politics for a long time. You know, there's always many stories and many ways to tell them. And so maybe it's not so much a matter of spin as it is how you choose to tell it. And here's the bottom line. For a very long time now, the other candidates have said Bernie Sanders just can't win. And a lot of the pundits in the media have said Bernie Sanders just can't win. And yesterday, New Hampshire said Bernie Sanders just won. And that's a big deal. When you have these early caucuses and primaries, obviously Iowa didn't do its job. Things fell apart. But in New Hampshire, you had an intense contest, people campaigning for years here, going all over the state. And at the end of it, Bernie Sanders pulled a credible win. He came in first place. He's thousands of votes ahead of Pete Buttigieg, and he deserves credit for that. That has meaning, especially because he also leads in national polls now, at least some national polls, in the race for the nomination. And when you look at those November polls, you see him leading by wide margins. In fact, one Quinnipiac poll the other day, I think it was a 9-point margin over Donald Trump. So it's important to give Bernie Sanders his due. He had a win, and it was a real win. It takes him into other races where he's very well organized and has a chance to continue to win.
But you know, I'm wondering, John. I mean, it seems to no, because I have to jump in here because you know, many of us are watching the news this morning, and we will be watching it all day. I don't think it's being spun that way. You know, we're hearing that, you know, he won by 20 points the last time. He didn't win by 20 points this time. You've got Amy Klobuchar nipping at his heels. Well, certainly she's right behind Buttigieg, and Buttigieg it's almost like a split. Please help me with that.
Sure. Well, look, you know, one of the things about these early races is you get bragging rights by winning, and you get bragging rights by exceeding expectations. And in this case, I think that there are three stories that come out of New Hampshire. I started with Sanders because I do think the media underplays Bernie Sanders' successes. They don't give him credit because there's such a desire to dismiss him. And I think part of that, by the way, is his fault. He talks so much about issues and not as much about electability. I think he needs to bring an electability argument much higher in his stump speech and in what he says. Now let's go. The two other people, though, who certainly get bragging rights and are, you know, stamped to go forward are Pete Buttigieg, who frankly did very, very well. He obviously benefited from roughly tying Sanders in Iowa and parlayed that into a credible finish. And he's got money, not as much as he'd like, but he could certainly go forward in a strong way to other states. His challenge is finding a place to win, because you can't keep being second place in the popular vote forever, or you end up as Mo Udall, for people who know history. Mo Udall was a very good candidate in 1976 running against Jimmy Carter and other folks, and Mo Udall always finished second. It never quite got him there. So Buttigieg has to look for his win. But the person I'd really like to talk about for at least a second is Amy Klobuchar. And come on, that's a pretty amazing story. A couple of weeks ago, Amy Klobuchar was being dismissed as, you know, just an also ran, an asterisk. It was just a question of when she, you know, gets bumped off the debate stage. She really didn't have that much money. You know, everything written against her. She did something that's epic in American politics. And it reassures you in some interesting ways. She won, and I'm going to underline the word won, the debate last Friday night. She just was so strong on that stage, so effective. And you could just see it across New Hampshire. I would be talking to people, and they say, well, yeah, I was going to vote for Pete, or I was going to vote for Elizabeth Warren. But, boy, I watched that debate, and Amy Klobuchar looked so strong. She came off so well. And you could just feel it in New Hampshire. She was rising on the basis of that. And, frankly, also, while I happen to have some criticisms of her, I'm not, I don't see her as a perfect candidate or anything like that. Her closing campaigning in New Hampshire was elegant and effective, and I mean, her stump speech was great, filled with humor, good arguments, and I would genuinely say here's somebody who, without a lot of money, without a lot of big name backing, secured a very strong finish based on her own strengths.
Wow, everybody. We're talking with John Nichols, and we're going to bring up LaTosha Brown of Black Voters Matter. That's right. Reverend Frank Watkins, who we have worked with. John Nichols, heaven knows, he's one of the architects of the campaigns that John Nichols and I started out on, the Jackson campaigns of the 1980s. Because, in fact, that was the first time John and I voted. We were able to work for a candidate and work with people who were progressive. And many people give Reverend Jackson credit for breaking the black barrier, the color barrier, the phenotypic barrier. But he broke the philosophical barrier. He was and remains an unapologetic populist. And he became a top-tier candidate running as a top-tier populist. And I think that's some of the enthusiasm that you hear, some of the excitement that you hear from us. But, I'm excited about everybody for different reasons. So that's a good thing. And, of course, we have Attorney Robert Patillo, and we've got you, the callers. So I don't know if you're going to be ticket winners, callers, or both. But, we've got this event on Thursday night, tomorrow night, at Soldier Field in the United Club Room. It's going to be fantastic. Shaquille O'Neal and Reverend Jesse Jackson will be welcoming us as we start off NBA weekend, NBA All-Star weekend. We're honoring Kobe Bryant, the great scholar athlete. Yes, he was a scholar as well, with Isaiah Thomas and Dave Bing and Dougie Fresh. Cool Kids Code. We're giving away tickets here all day on WCPT 820. You want to be there tomorrow night, and you want to have some more of this conversation about the New Hampshire primaries. Let's look at the results. What do they mean? Boy, oh boy. I'm so glad that we've had John Nichols on so he can let us know what, because this spin is driving me crazy that I'm watching here in the mainstream media. But that's why we need progressive media and independent media. More of the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Join you over on Facebook on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Like and share. And then on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show. Like and subscribe. Back in just a minute.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest.
So we're
Chicago
good. What was
traffic
going on with
updates.
that? Was that crazy?
Yeah.
Or was it somebody's phone?
Yeah, they were on speaker.
Who was on speaker?
Somebody was on speaker. I thought it was LaTosha. It was...
Looking far west to the Reagan Tollway into Cobb County eastbound.
That's why I'm like, I gotta check. And I went through, I said, look, please, no speaker or no headset. Get on your line. I was like, Nichols,
I knew it was
gotta make
something.
sure.
I knew it was something. But we need to find out if these callers, if they're...
I told Nichols, if you don't mind, since we got a lot of tickets, since they were the first callers, ask them if they want the tickets. They're winners. If they want them, we put them on the list.
Perfect. And let us know. Can he let us know immediately?
Yeah.
If they're winners. See,
Yeah.
if you call in, you win. That's
So
incentive.
Denise, I know for
We
sure,
are connected to this planet.
Is
What do we need
the
to
winner.
live? Air and water. What produces
And
air? The
you want to
trees
do a
around
live
us
read
produce
for this
oxygen.
half hour?
There's
You already
this
did on
direct
tap, at
correlation
the
right
top,
there between
looks like.
us
No,
and
I
I wrote
nature.
it down
Yet we
6:13.
try to distance ourselves
Did I
and
do it? I don't think I
disconnect
did it.
ourselves from
No?
nature
I just said
and try
it.
to govern
You just said
nature
it?
and
Okay.
destroy it, even though
You
we
wanna
know this is
do
what
a live
gives us
read?
I just
air
want to make sure
breathe.
we are. Remember what we learned from the last time? You'd rather have too many than too few.
Yeah, you're right.
Because chatting is different than a live read, so we can just do it
Yoga.
coming in,
According
but
to a
that's
study,
great.
CVS customers
Okay.
are better than most at
Let's
something
do
important,
it.
staying on prescriptions, which tends to make you healthier. So
Honey,
get
then
free
why don't you move that
prescription
out your
savings
way?
Plus, earn up to
Just
50
move
extra
it
bucks
like
rewards
on the other
each
side.
month.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Because of the
So
things you
you're
can
not
do
tripping
better
over. No,
at,
right.
staying healthy.
You can put it in
All
the
the
corner.
way to the
Treat
Yeah,
yourself
just
well
move it so
at
you're not.
CVS.
So it's
Terms and
not
conditions
bothering
apply.
you.
Not all prescriptions eligible. See our pharmacist or cvs.com/rx savings or /rx
Okay.
rewards.
Hey, it's Brock Benefil, co-host of the Climate
No,
Pod.
do what you need to do.
Did you know the average Chicagoan is responsible for 12...
Okay, you know how it feels when you've saved enough for that long-awaited home edition? Now imagine an addition on that addition. Whoa. That's the feeling with Capital One, where a new savings account earns an interest rate 5 times the national average. That's right, 5 times, as represented by 5 times more singers. This is banking reimagined.
Turn it
Capital One.
This way,
What's
just
in
a
your
little.
wallet?
Yeah.
Terms apply. Rate comparison based on
Okay, this
FDIC
is
national rates.
better.
Capital One NA member FDIC.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, it's Brock Benefil, co-host of the Climate Pod. Did you know the average Chicagoan is responsible for 12 metric tons of greenhouse gases
Okay, what's the name?
And their electricity alone accounts for nearly 7 metric tons.
Daphne? Oh, Daphne! Our Morning Star. Okay, I got you.
Out of your carbon footprint.
In 40 seconds, then you do your live read. Daphne is on number 4, and thank you for the tickets.
Of our customers' electricity consumption.
She's the morning. She does on YouTube.
We should tell our Morning Stars. You should send a message to our Morning Stars. Ask them, do you all want tickets?
An affordable way for
Okay.
anyone to
Oh,
slash
yeah,
their
on
carbon
YouTube.
footprint
Okay.
and support clean
Because
energy.
even if we go
And
over the
now,
allotted amount, we'll just get
can
more.
get
How many tickets do you
$25
want?
off their first bill
Because
at
they're Morning Stars, they get an extra special. Let us know how many tickets you want.
It takes just 2 minutes. Join
Ready?
now at
5 seconds.
And I'm doing the live read?
WCPT.
Do you have a paper? Hey everybody, welcome to NBA All-Star Weekend here in Chicago. We're kicking it off tomorrow, February 13th, here in Chicago with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Shaquille O'Neal at the Soldier Field United Club Room. You don't want to miss this. We have quite an array of people. We have Judge Greg Mathis and Isaiah Thomas and Dave Bing and Dougie Fresh, and we're honoring the scholar athlete Kobe Bryant. And we're doing what he would do, lifting up our children. Cool Kids Code. It's a fantastic program that needs your support. Cool Kids Code. You don't want to miss it. So go to rainbowpush.org, go to eBright, and call us at 888-503-6611, 888-503-6631, so that you can be a part of this wonderful event. We're going to have a lot of fun. It begins at 8 p.m. Great music, big fun. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Cool Kids Code. We want to help our children pursue excellence. We want to support them in every way that we can. We want to send them to school, and this is one way that we can. So we need your support. The Push Excel program needs your support. So calling all superstars. That's right. That's you. We want you to join these NBA superstars, Shaquille O'Neal and Isaiah Thomas and Dave Bing and Reverend Jesse Jackson and, of course, Greg Mathis and Dougie Fresh, as we have a good time tomorrow night at Soldier Field in the United Club Room. 888-503-6631, 888-503-6631.
Hey Chicago, it's Tom Hartman, and I'm coming back to the Windy City for a book signing.
So that's great.
My new book, The Hidden History of the War on Voting.
So are we giving them
Stole
2
Your
tickets
Vote,
apiece?
How to get it back?
We're giving them 2 tickets, right?
Yeah, a pair of tickets.
Signing copies on Sunday, March 1st from noon to 3 p.m. at Frugal Muse Bookstore in Darien. Big thank you to
You know what, I have to like pick my hair out, because you know, I get this helmet, this thing, I
Be sure
hate
to
that.
come by and see Tom Hartman. Sunday, March 1st.
We're coming back.
noon to 3
After I've been
p.m.
trying to,
at
girl, I
Frugal
used that
Muse
diffuser
in
trying to get
Darien.
this thing up this morning,
You're listening to
and it's not
WCPT 820,
standing up.
because facts matter.
Oh, the things that we go through here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, the Santita Jackson Show. We've been talking with John Nichols of The Nation magazine. He is still in New Hampshire. And we're looking at this big win last night. We're looking at Amy Klobuchar, who really punched above her weight. And I don't know if we can really say that anymore, John Nichols, because she's in the mix. She did very well in Iowa, and people are very impressed with her when they hear her. But you know what? With Mayor Pete, even though he has big problems with the black community in South Bend, where he has been the mayor, when you hear him speak, you say, wow, he can kind of change your mind. And now we're hearing about Michael Bloomberg, who is doing well nationally, but people pulling out his record on stop and frisk in his own words. So we have got a lot going on. Before I go to the callers and before I come back to you, John Nichols, Let me go to Frank Watkins, because Reverend Frank Watkins has been in New Hampshire before, and he's been with a candidate who was a principal trying to wend our way through that process. What did you see last night, Frank Watkins?
Well, a few observations that haven't been brought to the fore yet. In New Hampshire, independents can vote. So, it's not just Democrats, but also independents. And interestingly enough, Bernie Sanders won 29% versus 25% for Buttigieg of independents. So if you're talking about broadening his coalition and attracting independent voters, there's some evidence in New Hampshire that Bernie Sanders can do that. The second thing is that there was, only 97, and last I saw, 97% of the vote was in. They've already broken all the turnout records except one, which was in 2008 when Barack Obama ran, and apparently there's a chance that this will set an all-time record for turnout. Maybe John has a later figure on that than I do, but that's another thing to watch. The question I have for John, however, is apparently the youth turnout, the 18 to 34, whatever the measurement, 18 to 29, dropped from 19% down to 12%, and I wonder why that is the case, and maybe John could speak to that. On the other side of the aisle, however, there's a couple things to note. One, that there was a Republican primary in New Hampshire last night as well, even though everyone has forgotten that Wells, a former governor of Massachusetts, a neighboring state, is also running against Donald Trump, and he got 9% of the vote last night. Now, if even a third of that 9% doesn't show up in 2020 on November the 3rd, there's no way that Donald Trump can win New Hampshire. So that's also something to keep our eyes on. John, maybe can you speak to the young people? What happened to the youth vote or the younger vote in New Hampshire yesterday? And then I have a couple other points I wanted to make.
I can talk about it. We're still looking at the data. There is some exit polling that suggests that it wasn't as strong as in Iowa, for instance, where you saw a real bump. But I would caution about being too, and I know you're not, but about people being too dismissive on it. There is simply no question that as we watched the voting last night, as those numbers came in, it was very, very striking that there was a huge boost for Bernie Sanders when the college towns like Durham, where the University of New Hampshire is, and Keene, where Keene State College is. So young voters were still very, very critical to that Sanders coalition. Here's what I've got on the data, and this is from exit polling. You have to be a little bit cautious on this. But according to exit polling, folks 18 to 24 made up 8% of the electorate. Folks 25 to 29 made up another 7%. That takes you to 15. Those are credible. That's a credible turnout, an incredible proportion of the overall. But yeah, it was an older electorate here. 63% of people were over the age of 45. Now, here's what's really important. 44 and under, Bernie Sanders gets 42% of the vote. I mean, just a huge victory. The next closest candidate is Buttigieg at 21. 45 and older, well, there, Klobuchar won. And that's a really interesting thing. Klobuchar gets 27%, Sanders is down at only 17. Now, this is something I want to put into the mix for the discussion here. It is clear that without young voters, Bernie Sanders would not be coming in first in the popular vote in Iowa, coming in first in the popular vote in New Hampshire. And so these young voters are absolutely critical to his candidacy, and they are providing him with votes he needs. The challenge that he's got at this point is he needs to kind of up his discussion of electability, up some of his outreach to older voters of all races, of all classes, because that's where he's underperforming. And that, people can take it for whatever reason, but that needs to be understood. And one of the things about New Hampshire, and Frank knows this, and I think our other folks on the call do as well, New Hampshire is only useful to a candidate if you learn the lessons you can learn. And then you go forward, because 98% of the electorate hasn't voted yet. Most voting is yet to come. And in both New Hampshire and in Iowa, Bernie Sanders simply didn't get the level of support he's going to need among older voters. And so that's a place for him to do outreach. He needs to keep that youth mobilization going, needs to keep his actually very impressive mobilization among people of color, especially younger folks. But he also needs to figure out how to talk to older voters. And one of the places he's really going to need to do that is in South Carolina, where, as we all know, older African-American women are the critical voting bloc.
Well, hold on, John, because that's before you come back in, Frank. That's why I wanted to bring in Latasha Brown from Black Voters Matter and Robert Patillo, who's down in Atlanta. Latasha, you see Joe Biden, you see that it's like he's written off these two primaries, it seems, because he is waiting for South Carolina. What are you seeing? What did you make of all of that?
It's interesting. I love to, I'm in Alabama, and I love to talk to people, just regular, everyday people in the Black community, just to kind of always get a feel around what's happening. I've always said this, and with the media even, that while there was this kind of media push around, Black voters were with Biden, I've said from the beginning that was not was solid support, that support was fluid. And he could keep it or he could not. It was going to depend, and a lot of this would depend on what happened in the earlier primary. So because Black voters are very pragmatic voters. And so, interestingly, last night, as I was talking to an elder family member who is 85, I talked to some others yesterday as I was out. And Biden, none of them, not a single one of them, said that they want to support Biden. Not one. Even our folks on What Matter of Fact, the fact that he came in fifth last night was of a major concern. Part of Biden's appeal to Black voters, as they expressed to me, was that they felt like he was the guy to beat Trump. The fact that he's performed so poorly these first two primaries, although those primaries are not indicative of the diversity that we have in America, the fact that he did not perform well, and not only performed well, but he came in far, far under what they expected. I've heard a lot of several of the ones that I've talked to, particularly in South Carolina, saying, we got to rethink this thing. He can't win, because his support wasn't necessarily based on them being excited about his candidacy. It was based on this whole idea of, could he beat Trump, that he was the most positioned person to beat Trump. And I think that he had last night, I think one of the core stories last night is that Biden took a major loss, that even for Black voters, being pragmatic voters, if you can't deliver the white vote, then they also recognize that we don't have the numbers ourselves to really be able just to push a candidate by himself. And so people are very, very pragmatic. I think that his two losses, he's taken a big, big hit, and I think that South Carolina is up for grabs. While I do think that he will show well in South Carolina, I think it's very possible that he may not win South Carolina.
Wow. What about Steyer? Just very quickly.
Steyer, ironically, that's who I've been hearing a lot of information. Steyer is going to do well in South Carolina. From the reports that I'm hearing from the ground, Steyer will do very well. Buttigieg will not do well in South Carolina. People do not identify with him. And Klobuchar, people do not identify with her. They don't know who she is. But Biden will do well. I do think that I think that Elizabeth Warren will do better. I think she's going to do better, but Steyer is going to surprise folks. Steyer's going to do really well. And then I think when you come over to Super Tuesday, interestingly, I think Bloomberg, up until yesterday, Bloomberg, I was convinced, just in my conversations in Alabama, that he's going to do well in the South, in some places on Super Tuesday.
But you said up until yesterday.
Yesterday. Right. It is one thing, and we know this. We know this even from past campaigns. It is one thing for people. Part of what has happened, I think, a lot of the momentum that Bloomberg was able to capture is because he is running commercials. It is amazing. He is running commercials every 5 minutes. There's a Bloomberg commercial.
Wait a minute, with President Obama, it's like, wait a minute, Biden's not even doing it like that.
Yes, with President Obama every 5 minutes. The challenge is he's never had real scrutiny. So what has happened, he's flown under the radar. He's actually attached himself with, I've heard all kinds of, I've got all kinds of reports of how he has been spreading resources. And what we see is he even recently got an endorsement from the Alabama Democratic Conference a week ago. But what is interesting, I got 8 phone calls on yesterday because once this audio recording came out in which he essentially says that white people, if you look at the stats, white people have been stopped too much by the cops. And essentially he says that it should be because they don't commit serious crime. So I thought that's interesting. It is one thing for him to kind of halfway defend and float around, stop and frisk. It is another thing entirely for black people to hear audio recordings of a white candidate, and this was in 2015, to actually say that white people have been stopped too much by the cops. There is not a single black person I know that actually believes there's any merit to that. And so he's going to have a hard road to hoe based on these recent audio recordings that are coming out. I think it's a major hit. And the challenge is we're seeing it's early on, and the media will take something and run with it. It is early on where folks were like, oh, yes, he will do fine, and black voters like him, and black voters didn't really know him. And as things come out, like the audio recording from Aspen and the audio recording that came out yesterday, when people get a sense, when black folks get a sense of really where you are on race, we're going to see his numbers drop drastically.
Well, he did say, quote, 95% of murderers, and murder victims fit one MO. You can just take the description, Xerox it, and pass it out to all the cops. They are male, minority, 16 to 25. That's true in New York. That's true in virtually every city.
Right there is going to have, he is going to regret, and which he probably is right now, because he came out with statements on Twitter yesterday and saying that he just didn't know. Well, if you didn't know, now you know. He's going to take a major hit from that particular recording, and I think we're going to see more things to come out. I think people don't recognize that part of what happens, and a part of who he is. Bloomberg is the 12th wealthiest person in the entire world. Not in the U.S. He's the 12th wealthiest person in the entire world. And so he has been spending money. He's spent millions and millions of dollars on radio advertisements and TV advertisements so far. And so part of what I think we're seeing is kind of this false, we're seeing him out front and him gaining ground. And I think part of that is a response and reaction to what people are seeing on TV. But ultimately, as his record becomes examined, that as we see more evidence of these comments that really are rooted in racism, and what his thinking is about black voters, he is going to slip, and he's going to take a major, major hit.
Well, John Nichols, what does this mean going forward? I mean, because we have these two, we have Iowa and New Hampshire behind us. You've even had many Iowans who said, you know what, I wish we did have more diversity. That was, in our caucus. And then you hear about Bloomberg, who's been rising nationally, and now you get this bomb that was dropped yesterday in social media, because I know at the Aspen Institute, you and I both know that, and so does Frank Watkins, you don't really expect a recording of you to get out, because it's really closed, right?
Usually it's pretty close, but recordings do come out, and so at the end of the day, we ought to say what we believe, but we ought to also recognize that when we say it, people will hear it. And one of the challenges for Michael Bloomberg is he didn't just become one of the wealthiest men in the world. He's been one of the wealthiest men in the world for a very, very long time. As a result, I think he's very, very comfortable just spouting off whatever comes into his mind and having everybody around him nod and approve and say, "Oh, that's great," and stuff like that. And I don't think he's so used to being questioned and challenged. And he's about to find out that in a presidential race, what you have said recently, and 2015 is recently, is going to become a part of that discourse, and you're going to be challenged on it. And to my mind, Bloomberg's strategy to buy his way into this race and to buy his way onto debate stages and into Super Tuesday is, I think, quite frankly, I think it's offensive. And I think that his hope is that he can just sort of steamroll through this whole thing with a lot of money. But what our good friend from Alabama was just saying is that no, voters pay attention to presidential races. They do focus in. And I think that Mr. Bloomberg, for all of his money, is going to confront the fact that people have values and ideals, and they care about some of these things, and I care. And I think people, African Americans will be concerned, but I think also that people of all races and all backgrounds are going to be concerned.
I mean, I think so.
It's a big deal.
What hasn't been talked about in terms of that tape was he said, you have these high crime rates in the black and the brown communities, so that's where you put the police, and so you have to stop and frisk them and slam them up against the wall and frisk them.
Thank you for that, Frank. That's right.
That's what he says. Additionally, you were mentioning about MSNBC, and I saw the lady that said she was resentful of the way the hosts and so forth were treating Bernie Sanders and so.
I love her. She's my heroine right now.
Because of that, but all the polls were showing that Bernie Sanders was going to win the race, and I was watching it. I saw, and they kept asking people, and I voted for Amy, I voted for Buttigieg, I voted for Ellen, Elizabeth, I was like, there were two people that I saw where they said, and she was one of them, where they said they were voting for Bernie, and I was like, where are they interviewing these people? Because all the polls show Bernie is going to be the winner, but nobody is voting for him that they're interviewing. So how can this come about?
You know what? Just stay right there. Everybody stay right there. I've got to run to this break, but John, do you have to leave me right now? John Nichols? Oh, John had to go. Well, you know what? I love John, and I love all of you. Stay right there, Latasha Brown. I got to hold you. Attorney Robert Patillo, you know he's got a lot to say. And, of course, Reverend Frank Watkins. We're talking about this. I hope we get to parental leave, but you know what? It's the New Hampshire primary, and we've got some of the best minds in America helping us to analyze what we saw last night and what we're seeing going forward. More of the Santita Jackson Show. Meet us over on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show. Please like and subscribe there, and over on Facebook on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Like and share. Like and share. Share. Create some watch parties. Let's have a great conversation tonight. And, of course, call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Doing a bit of a mix today. We're doing a ticket giveaway. Those of you who want to join Shaquille O'Neal and Reverend Jesse Jackson and Isaiah Thomas and Dave Bing and Judge Greg Mathis and Judge Greg Mathis. Did I say Judge Greg Mathis, Lady B?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Ducky Fresh. We're all going to be out there tomorrow night at 8 p.m. at Soldier Field in the United Club Room. I wonder if Frank Watkins is going to come in here because, he plays basketball. He almost went pro. I'm just kidding. He thinks he did. Back in just a minute. Oh boy.
Hi everybody. Let's kick off the
Girl,
2020
they used
like,
to,
All-Star Weekend here in Chicago.
girl, please, they used to play, because the basketball court was right under my window.
Shaquille O'Neal, Judge Greg Mathis,
And like at 5:30 in the morning, they would be playing a full-on basketball game. And I was like, and they were serious. And I was, looking back, I'm like,
you know when they play basketball, that's a serious thing. Basketball and football.
is that crazy?
That is,
I'm not going to ask, you should ask Frank about it, because they used to play football too. Like broken bones and whatnot. Crazy.
In the spirit of scholar athlete, Kobe Bryant. Let's support our children as they pursue excellence.
Ooh, Richard Marks, Bloomberg versus Trump, a choice or an echo?
Call 888-503-6631. That's 888-503-6631.
Oh boy. So did we get any people who, you said Daphne picked up, she wanted to get some tickets?
Cancer, the flu can hit hard.
Okay, just continue to send it out to them.
With the
if they want to come again.
AP News. Good morning. I'm Ed Donahue.
So do I do a live read coming back in?
No, it's
okay. At 7:30 and then 8. Okay.
As follows a strong showing in the Iowa caucuses.
Wow.
Victory here is the beginning.
Victory here. I love that guy. One of my friends cannot. He drives him crazy.
And here in a state.
Okay, Daphne did went on Facebook and say, "Thank you for the tickets. Love you."
Love you, Daphne. But you know what? Just continue to put that message out there.
Yeah,
we
I'm both on Facebook and.
But we have a full bank of calls. Period. And of course, Chappelle wants to say something. Oh my gosh! And Denise and
already loyal Bernie Sanders supporters.
Amy Klobuchar finished third, followed by Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden.
Verlon. Oh no! Has he switched his allegiance?
As the old song goes, Lord, don't move my mountain. Give me the ability to climb. I can't do it alone. I need your help to climb
bless
that
his
mountain.
heart. I hate to see people struggle.
Are out of the race. Andrew Yang and Michael
Oh boy.
In Japan, 39 new cases of coronavirus have been confirmed on a cruise ship quarantined at Yokohama, bringing the total cases to 174 on the Diamond Princess. On Twitter today, President Trump
If they locked me on that boat, I don't know what I'd do. But that's why I always have lots of books with me and things like that. I routinely travel with like 5 to 10 books, hard copies. Oh no, I don't depend on the cloud. No, I always have my books. I love them. I have thousands of books, literally. I have like 3,000 in storage. I love to read. I love it. That's always been my favorite. And then, in some collections I'm not going to get rid of because they're like really great collections.
Yeah, they're really
love it. I love it. It's my favorite thing. I don't know how people do Audible because I'm like, I want to read. I want to sit in my comfortable chair and I want to read. I love it.
Of what many see as the epitome of a show dog.
Yes.
Not everyone shared that view.
Will you be able to pick me up at 9:30?
In the best of 7 final ring, a fan shouted out, "No way, Slay, no way!" But he voted
where's your pickup? Oh, darn it. Okay.
No prize money in a
yeah, no, because I've got to go downtown. Okay.
No
worries. I'll have you pick me up for my doctor's appointment. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Oh boy. Yeah, because this raspiness, I gotta find out what's going on here.
Yeah.
They said to be conscious and alert. The game between the Blues and the Ducks is called off.
Yeah. So okay.
Donahue, AP News.
Wait, what did I just do with this guy?
8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs.
All right.
And streaming
but don't you love Latasha? Isn't she fabulous? I can't wait. I know Robert Patillo was wound up, and he is gonna want to come out.
Now your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic.
They all have so much information, right? And that's the thing. You want people with a lot of information, and they're giving us a view that we're not hearing on television. Because you're just hearing hearing that, Bernie really didn't perform up to expectations. It's not true. It's not true. I mean, he really is 2-0. He won. He's ahead in the popular vote. And in a more diverse, in a larger field, because really it came down to they wanted
47 minutes 390 to that.
the progressives wanted Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016, and she decided against it. So Bernie Sanders said, "Look, the progressives got to be out here." So he just jumped out and did it. He just said, "Hey, and he looked crazy doing it, and he caught fire, and it shocked everybody. It's almost almost like almost like Reverend's campaign again, because Reagan was so right wing that no one was answering to Reagan. People were just letting him shred welfare. I mean, and just all kinds of things. And the only person who really stood up against that, and the only group was the progressives, the only person who did it was Reverend. He opposed it.
Okay, there's sticky frog. But skills tests, that's for sure. See why independent research by SoPro shows Indeed delivers 3 times more hires than any other job site. Visit Indeed.com/promo today and get a free sponsored job
I don't know if we'll
upgrade
get over
on
to
your first
parental
posting.
leave.
Terms, conditions, and
I
exclusions
might have to
apply.
wait for another day.
Hi, everybody. Let's kick off the 2020 NBA All-Star Weekend here in Chicago.
So after
Reverend
this,
Jesse Jackson,
one more
NBA
spot
great
and then we come
Shaquille
in.
O'Neal, Judge Greg Mathis, NBA Hall
I
of
just love it
Famers
when they
Isaiah
say
Thomas and Dave
I'm Judge
Bing,
Greg
and for
Mathis.
all of you old schoolers out there, the human beatbox, Dougie Fresh, as we
But I think we need to
life
do
and
Bloomberg's
works of
remarks
Kobe
tomorrow.
Bryant. Meet us Thursday, February 13th, 2020
Yes.
at 8
Get
p.m.
some
at
live
Soldier
friends
Field
for New York.
in the United
Because he
Club.
really,
As
I'm like,
Rainbow
all these
Push,
ads he's putting
CEF, and
using
Push Excel raise money for the
Obama,
Cool
No,
and
Kids
Biden
Code
didn't even
program.
do
The
that.
Cool
He didn't have
Kids
permission
Code
to, clearly.
program. So in the spirit
He can't
of
use
scholar
President
athlete
Obama's image
Kobe
without his
Bryant,
permission.
let's support our
Really?
children
You
as they
can't.
pursue
You can't do
excellence.
that. You can't do
Auto
that.
sale at
And he wouldn't
rainbowpush.org,
dare.
And for more information, call
But Bloomberg,
888-503-6631.
he's
He
doing
has
it.
clearly he has his permission.
503-6631.
He wouldn't be able to do that without.
The average
He wouldn't be able to. I mean, it's just it's that simple.
You didn't see a commercial with Obama campaigning.
I know.
But that was during the that was a different time.
That
That was a different campaign. Because he's not for this campaign. Because Bloomberg has not been out campaigning. So the President Obama has said that he would stay out of it. But you stay out of it, but you know.
We're coming back in 10 seconds.
Oh boy. Look, I'm not mad at anybody. You just want to know where people are. That's all. It's okay.
WCPT.
So we've got to get
where facts matter.
we need first person we need is
This is the
CK.
Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. We're trying to get over to parental leave. I just don't know if we will be able to get there today. We will get there, though. If not today, tomorrow. We're going to talk about Mayor Bloomberg's remarks that, of course, Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter, this troublemaker would bring that up. While this man's riding high, getting more and more recognition in the national polls, she would throw the monkey wrench. I know you threw all that stuff out there on him, Latasha Brown. And then Reverend Frank Watkins.
Critical of these elections, it's interesting. How we are. These cycles, these news cycles, are these 24-hour news cycle, and it's like, what's the next flavor? What's the what's the next flavor of the day? And then what you see is these polls that come out and they support these candidates. I was like, oh, look who's gaining ground, and not really have a real analysis around, of course, if a candidate's coming out and spending millions and millions of dollars, and people are unfamiliar with their record, and that is going to gain some momentum. But can you stand the test of really being on the debate stage? What is your record? As people learn more and more about each of the candidates, we've seen that shift. And so I think it's really interesting, too. I also want to note is that the audio clip that is out, the video clip that is out right now, is not just an Aspen video clip that he tried to block. There was a clip at Aspen where he was talking about stop and frisk and justifying that and talking about throwing black men on the wall that supposedly he tried to block. And yesterday there was someone that posted it, and President Trump retweeted it, right, which made it go viral. But the second thing is there's a video clip right now, an audio clip of where he was in a radio station, and you can hear and see him out of his own mouth with his own words in 2015 say that based on stop and frisk, that it was in fact white voters. I mean, the white people who were actually, he believed, that were stopped too much by the cops. And that, in fact, that he talks about who commits crimes. I think it's really interesting. That is going to have a devastating impact on him. And so it's not just the Aspen piece. There's this radio clip, and I think we're going to see much more. It's going to be revealed because he has been the wealthiest, because he has not been checked, because he hasn't had to be accountable to anyone. What he's been quite comfortable, even when you see him in this clip. This is 2015. I want to just remind people that he didn't just stop and frisk. As he kind of floats around and says, "Well, I didn't know. I thought it was wrong." What happened is in 2013, the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional, and that is what stop and frisk in New York. It was 2 years after the Supreme Court. So even if he's saying, "Well, I didn't know at the time," it was 2 years after the Supreme Court ruling in 2015 that this man is actually on tape at a radio station doing an interview where he actually says that white people were, if you look at the stats, in fact, white people were stopped too much by the cops around, and completely supporting his position around stop and frisk.
When we come, but to stay right here, everybody, we're talking with Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter. We have been talking about New Hampshire, but you know, it's election 2020, and this conversation continues to grow because now that we're in the thick of the primary and caucus season, we're finding out much more about the people who are running. We're going to find out much more about Amy Klobuchar's record as a prosecutor, so be prepared for that. We're going to hear, maybe we won't. I don't know about Pete Buttigieg and his relationship and record with the black community in South Bend. These are the things that we need to know. These are the questions that we need to ask Reverend Frank Watkins of Rainbow Push, and really one of the architects of Reverend Jackson's presidential campaigns. He's worked in every major presidential campaign since McGovern at the highest level, so we're so glad to have him. We're going to hear from Robert Patillo in a minute. Janette Wilson, we've got to get some space for C.K. Hoffler, the president-elect of the National Bar Association. We were going to be talking about parental leave, but we're going to kind of go with what we've got right now. We're talking about New Hampshire, of course. Bernie Sanders won yesterday. Pete Buttigieg was just behind him. But, you know, if you look at both of these contests, Iowa and New Hampshire, you have a man who is ahead in the popular vote, and that is Bernie Sanders. And he's ahead in the popular vote by a few votes, everybody. Something to think about. But we're watching Amy Klobuchar, who's been able to punch above her weight and move into the top tier, at least temporarily. Pete Buttigieg. These are two moderates who many people did not know maybe a year or so ago. You remember when she gave her announcement speech in the blizzard? Well, you know, look, she's a tough one. She's a tough one. And so, and Elizabeth Warren, many people said, well, she didn't perform as well. She came in fourth at 10%, but Vice President Biden came in fifth. He didn't even bother staying around last night in New Hampshire. He went right to South Carolina, moving to the black vote that he needs desperately to hold on to his presidential bid. Will that happen? Will he be able to get enough of the Latino vote in Nevada? What's going to happen, everybody? And, of course, we are giving away these tickets to this event tomorrow night. Lady B and I are going to be there February 13th at 8 p.m. at Soldier Field at the United Club Room, joining Reverend Jesse Jackson as Shaquille O'Neal and Reverend Jackson host a special tribute to Kobe Bryant, the great Stoker Scholar athlete. Is going to be fantastic, everybody. Isaiah Thomas, Dave Bing, Judge Greg Mathis, Judge Greg Mathis, that's right, and Dougie Fresh. And it's a benefit for Cool Kids Code. You want to be there. And so if you call us today during this show and after, and if you're joining our Morning Stars, and if you meet us over on YouTube, we've got some tickets to give to you. and call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. We know the lines are full, but continue to call. We're going to roll through the callers and roll through everybody else so that we can talk with you today on the Santita Jackson Show. Let me go to you, Robert Patillo, just very quickly before I go to some of the callers, and Janette Wilson. What did you make of November? You have been so patient. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. And I will be that voice that pours a little bit of cold water on everything going on currently.
Okay, so we're going to have to let him go. Thank you, Robert Patillo. Bye. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I will be the cold drink of water to let it for the people who are jumping off of the Biden bandwagon earlier. Because let's understand that in 2016, Bernie won every county in New Hampshire. You're talking about a state which is literally shares a contiguous border with Vermont, where he's from, and this other border is with New Hampshire, is with Massachusetts, where Elizabeth Warren is from. So if you look at the pathway going forward, Joe Biden has a chance to win South Carolina, to win Nevada, and then go into Super Tuesday strong. And you're going to basically forget about Iowa and New Hampshire. I think at this point, Iowa and New Hampshire hold the weakest positioning as being these lead-off states that are really a bellwether for the remainder of the nation. I think the person who took the biggest hit last night was Elizabeth Warren, because New Hampshire is kind of tailor-made for her to do well there. It is a neighboring state. They share similar values. They share the similar media market. She has been camping out there for months. So the fact that she could not do better than a fourth-place finish really does show that the left wing of the party, the progressive wing, is solidifying around Bernie. And so after a year of consternation, of debates, of primaries, we're still getting down to the exact race that we thought we were going to have, which is Biden versus Bernie, the battle of the two 70-year-old rich guys to determine the future of the very diverse and young and energetic Democratic Party. So to not fly away on the hyperbolic train, I think Biden will do fine in South Carolina. He'll do fine in Nevada. And then we're going to get into a delegate battle after Super Tuesday, when most of the field will clear out thereafter. I don't see a real path for Pete Buttigieg going forward. You can't keep finishing second. Eventually, you have to win somewhere. I don't see the next state that Pete Buttigieg can win. The same thing with the same thing with Klobuchar. Well, I don't see the next state that Klobuchar will actually be able to get victories in, and that's why I think we're going to get down to Bernie versus Biden.
Janette Wilson, before we... Okay. Yes.
Tasha, you know the piece, so I appreciate the comment, but I do think there's a piece that I would like for us to talk about, and it's really sexism, and it's really around how do we see the viability of women candidates, because the truth of the matter is Biden came in fifth. So while if it was a hit for Elizabeth Warren as fourth, Biden that we're still saying is electable. Why is it that the women can come, both of the women place higher than him?
That's right.
But yet Biden placed fifth, not second, not third, not fourth, but fifth. But we're still saying that he is the most valuable. We really need to talk about how sexism and how women candidates are treated in this election as well. Because I hear that over and over again, particularly from me and commentators around this election. No matter what, it's as if no matter how Biden keeps suffering in the polls, still comes out as he's the strong candidate. Last night, the truth of the matter, how could the hit be bigger for Elizabeth Warren at fourth when Biden, the strong candidate, came in fifth?
And Frank Watkins, hold on. You make a great point, Latasha Brown, because you know he's run for president twice before, Frank Watkins, and he's never done well, ever. Before I bring on Janette Wilson and the other callers.
This is his third time running, and he's never won a primary.
Not one, ever.
Ever. And he lost 22% of the black vote in the latest poll as well.
And no one is even talking about that. Janette Wilson, Reverend Janette Wilson, Attorney Janette Wilson, of course, from Rainbow Push. Before we go to these callers, Reverend Wilson, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we're going to have a broker convention because I think Bloomberg is a sleeper. That's number one. Even with the stop and frisk, because all of them have some racist backdrop in their story. The systemic impact of racism in America has all of the white candidates at risk if we're going to have that discussion. So they're going to have to come up with real serious policies that can be implemented. But I think Buttigieg will have trouble going through the Bible Belt on Super Tuesday. It's interesting that Biden he just doesn't seem to be able to move the needle at all. And I think Elizabeth Warren will win in the states that have low electoral votes, you know, the East Coast, the far West, but I'm not so sure that, this teaching kind of style that she has will allow her to push through the Bible Belt. And Biden is counting on the black vote. I think black voters have a great deal of power, as do women. And none of the candidates have really focused on the base that can cause them to win. That's women and African Americans.
Let me go to Denise. Denise, what's on your mind today? Denise? Denise, how you doing? You know what? Let's try and pull up Denise. Let me go to Chaparral. Chaparral, what's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, Santita. Listen, I stayed up last night watching the returns and everything like that, and I was just really floored how they did not give a congratulatory thing to Bernie. I mean, they basically flipped from he won, but he didn't win by as much. I'm like, a win is a win, and the fact that you have last time it was only him and Hillary, as opposed to a whole bunch of folks that are running this time. And I just don't see how Klobuchar or Buttigieg can actually curry the black vote. I mean, these first two races have not been diverse at all. They haven't, I think it's like a 1% African-American percentage in both states. So I'm trying to figure out, how is this a pilot for America that you're saying that this is the way it's going to be. So I think that, a lot of people were asking Warren to step down yesterday, and I was like, no, she needs to go through at least Super Tuesday to see how she fares. Because I think, ironically, she has a lot of support in the black women community.
She does, and you know what? And stay right there, Chaparral. And look, increasingly it is looking like it's going to be a broker convention, which is why I believe Bernie Sanders is right to recanvass some of these areas in Iowa, because it's going to be a game of inches. Every single delegate you get is going to matter when we get to Milwaukee.
I agree.
And and I think you're making a great point about the support that Elizabeth Warren has with black women, because I know a lot of black women who are very impressed with her. It's one thing to see her on TV, and a lot of these people, but when you get in a room with them and you hear her explain, for example, her policy positions, it can be a game changer. Thank you, Chaparral.
Observation's been that, yes, she relates extremely well to African American women.
She really does.
She has to be able to reach out through various forms of media so they can hear her message. She's not able to purchase the kind of ads that Bloomberg has. So I agree with you, Santita. It's going to be a broker convention in Milwaukee. But I think Bernie is only pulling college students, and he's got that student base. The question is, can he turn them out? And he can't deliver on some of these promises. Everybody, you just can't say, well, it's revolution or not. And I agree with Buttigieg on that. Now, Buttigieg hasn't delivered anything in South Bend as it relates to race relations, and so he's a very smart candidate. They all have some issues that they have to address. If you look at the backdrop, whenever Bernie has a rally, you got one or two black people.
But you know, but he is also making inroads with young black people. To be fair,
he's making inroads with young. That's what I said, students and young people.
But I mean, not just students though. I mean, just black folks. When you talk to young black people, they like him. Yeah, they like him now.
I'm not saying they don't.
Yeah.
Well, when you say he didn't have a lot of black people around him, he was running in Iowa and New Hampshire, where there aren't a lot of black people, but there are black and brown people in these cities. For example, Waterloo is significantly black. Waterloo has an African American mayor, and Bernie won Waterloo. As a matter of fact, the big secret is, while there are few people of color in Iowa and New Hampshire, Bernie actually won. And so that's one of the big secrets. Klobuchar, which was interesting to me, I'm not a regular viewer of The View, but she was live on The View yesterday. And I guess there's a black woman named Sunny something.
Sunny Hostin, yeah.
Okay, she is a prosecutor herself. And man, she unloaded on Amy Klobuchar yesterday about some case of a 15 or 16-year-old teenager that apparently she has put away for life. And like I say, I don't know the facts in the case, but she drilled down on it. And Amy Klobuchar was totally frustrated with trying to answer her questions, and really couldn't answer her questions. But I noticed that was done, of course, in the morning, but none of it surfaced during the day on television. A couple people later in the afternoon and early evening, I heard, I think it was Claire McCaskill, mention something about her having a problem on The View, but they didn't show any of the clips. And if they had shown the clips, she was devastated by Sunny
Hostin. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She devastated her on this young African American teenager, in a death penalty case. Apparently, they didn't do a whole bunch of things apparently that they should have done, and she just she clobbered her. She opened up a can of worms on her.
Wow. You know what, Reverend Janette Wilson, we were going to be talking about parental leave, and we're going to bring you back to talk about that, because we're going to continue this conversation. I have to open up my phone lines so that I can get more people in. But I wanted to get a closing thought from you, because the great thing about Reverend Wilson is that she is, when I met her, she had just become a lawyer. Then she became a minister. Then she's been an educator, and she's always been in civil rights. So when we get her, we can just let her do the whole show. She can talk about it. It's true. But no, your closing thought.
It is incumbent on all of us to focus and not just look at the president, but look at the power of that office. When you see how Trump has replaced most of the federal judiciary and how many he's replaced on the Supreme Court, that's why he says, I can do what I want, because he now feels he has placed people with the same ideology on these federal courts. And so we talk about civil rights. It's in jeopardy based on how the court will swing to the right. So I think that we have to look at the president, we have to look at the Senate. Who are we elected in these Senate races? And Reverend Watkins knows the numbers that are open seats where we can take back the Senate, and that's something we have to focus on, as well as these state elections. This is not the election to sit out.
Reverend Attorney Janette Wilson, can't wait to have you back when we're going to talk about parental leave, because it's a real issue. In America, we do not have paid parental leave, paid maternal leave. Women are going back to work a week or so after they've had children, after they had C-sections. We're going to talk about that tomorrow or tomorrow or Monday, because women are literally putting their lives at risk because they do not have paid maternity leave, and they're afraid I read the op-ed piece with the woman had an abortion. She said, I can't afford this. So we're going to come back, we're going to have you come back and talk about this, but so many people want to talk about New Hampshire and all that means. I want to save you so I can bring you back, Reverend Wilson, and we are giving these tickets away for the Cool Kids Code event. She's not going to party. She wears her collar all the time. Get out of here.
With my collar.
She pops a collar. She doesn't party with a collar. Get out of here. We love you, Reverend Wilson. She wears a collar, and she's serious. She said, I do it to remind myself. Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Love you much. God bless.
Love you.
Everybody continue to call us at 773-763-WCPT. We're going to welcome Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the President-elect of the National Bar Association. We want to hear what's on her mind because now, Attorney Robert Patillo, we're heading south. More of the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, talking about New Hampshire today. And everything. Oh my goodness, what a great time to be in talk radio, right? So go over to my YouTube page, to the Santita Jackson Show page, and over here on Facebook, Santita Jackson and Friends. Back in just a minute.
You're listening to WCPT
Okay, so we'll
820.
move her down.
Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Was Denise still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So is she ready for us to come to her?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And we can get CK. We can move her down.
I'm going to call you right back.
Great. So we can move her down.
About Eden, 19 minutes like to the junction, outbound 17.
Okay, so that's great.
Kennedy, delays started for
Well, this has been an exciting show. Would you not say? What do you all think, everybody? It's been great. Do you all want to talk about Mayor Bloomberg tomorrow? I think that would be great, don't you? Yeah. I wonder if that's a game changer, and what that's going to mean. And what about a brokered convention? Ooh, Lady B. So much to talk about. Right?
57, 19 minutes.
Okay. Hold on, okay? Thank you.
The theory of DNA activation is that although we have 12 strands of DNA, we only use 2 strands to build our bodies. Activate those other 10 to bring you to a higher state of consciousness,
this is
but
also
to prevent you from getting
sick.
DNA activation is believed to open the activated person
let
to
me
their
run through a couple of these calls.
Internal communication of their multi-dimensional self.
On Facebook, I told them to inbox me their information, and so that I can write them on the list. So far, I know.
Another like me. With the Capital One Saver Card, you earn 4% cashback on dining and entertainment.
Lorraine.
4% cashback on milkshakes with extra whipped cream.
And then also,
and 4% to get
tell them, just let us know on that. Let us know how many tickets they want.
Let me give you the list that we got so far.
Okay, we'll just let them know over on Facebook.
Hey guys, it's
As
Taylor.
many
You
tickets,
can
let
buy
us
my
know
new
how many
album
tickets you
Lover
want.
at taylorswift.com.
Because you are more stars.
Capital One Events, USANA.
Yes.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-501-3689 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-501-3689.
You know, this thing is so far. I wish I could put it right here. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
No. Come on. Bring me in. Hey, everybody. It's NBA All-Star Weekend. We are kicking it off here in Chicago tomorrow, February 13th, at Soldier Field in the United Club Room. Reverend Jesse Jackson, Shaquille O'Neal, they're welcoming you to a reception in which we honor the memory of scholar athlete Kobe Bryant. But guess what? Cool Kids Code. It's a wonderful program from Push Excel. We have our children who code, and we want to send them to school. We want to send them on college tours, and we need your support to make that happen. So please join us tomorrow night. Thursday, February 13th, at Soldier Field in the United Club Room. It's going to be fantastic. Dougie Fresh for all of us old schoolers out there. And Judge Greg Mathis, that's for Lady B, Judge Greg Mathis. Isaiah Thomas, Dave Bing, NBA Hall of Famers. And, of course, Shaquille O'Neal and Reverend Jesse Jackson. We all welcome you to this wonderful event. It's going to be a lot of fun, great music, light snacks, big fun, party time, and you'll get a chance to rub shoulders, well, not rub shoulders with, but at least you'll see Shaquille O'Neal and Judge Greg Mathis, and Isaiah Thomas, and Dave Bing, and Dougie Fresh, and Reverend Jesse Jackson. It's going to be fantastic. Call 888-503-6631, 888-503-6631, or go to eBright or rainbowpush.org, or call 773-FREEDOM so that you can get your ticket now.
I've always been a fighter. I came into this world at a mighty 2 pounds 9 ounces, but I kept fighting every day to stay alive. The fight in me continued throughout my childhood and beyond. I always wanted to make a positive difference in the world. Now I'm running for judge. Vote for Deidre Bauman for Cook County Circuit Court Judge on March 17th, 2020. The voice for equal justice.
Paid for by Deidre Bauman for Judge.
This is Kevin Gordon, Director of Camp Kupugani Multicultural Camp. We can all agree that kids are our future, and not only are they our future, they're a solution to a more civilized society. It's one thing to follow social media and watch the news without face or accountability and allow ourselves to be conditioned to hate. It's quite another thing to have our kiddos spend 2 weeks living and playing with a variety of people during the summer. Camp Kupugani Multicultural Camp does just that. We bring together kids 7 to 15 years old, encouraging them to really see each other, understanding and appreciating their varied backgrounds and cultures. Now more than ever, I'm presenting to WCPT listeners a challenge to change. If you want to change the world and really make a difference,
she sends me the phone number and everything. Instead of Messenger, they put it on
beautiful world.
She said, the list so she can say the winners. Okay, coming back.
Because facts matter.
Hold on.
You're listening to WCPT
Got a lot of callers.
820.
Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, Santita Jackson Show. We're over on YouTube on the Santita Jackson Show page. Please like and subscribe. And we're here on Facebook on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Everybody, call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, as we talk about what happened in New Hampshire and what does all of this mean. Latasha Brown, Black Voters Matter. Attorney Robert Patillo, noted civil rights attorney and radio host, and of course Attorney C.K. Hoffler, President-elect of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest black bar association in the world, and Reverend Frank Watkins. Boy, oh boy. Someone who's really, he's been the architect of the historic Jackson campaigns of 1984 and 1988, but he's been involved in every major presidential campaign, really, in the top tier since 1972, and so we're so excited to have him with us so he can give us some direction, Lady B, and help catch us before we fall. Before we go to some of these callers, Attorney Hoffler, I know we were going to talk about parental leave, and we are going to do that, but just not today, because everyone wants to talk about New Hampshire. What did you think about what you saw last night?
We aren't seeing Joe Biden at all. Making a big difference, and that is sort of surprising because at the end of the day, it appears that the public, at least in these two, the first two cycles, the public believes that Bernie Sanders has a better chance of defeating Trump, because that's ultimately where we have to go, what we have to look at. And I think that is very interesting. I would not have predicted that. I think that while he is obviously a strong candidate, and I'm not really taking issue with what he believes, but I did not believe that the American public, the Democrats, would think that he could defeat Donald Trump. He raises a lot of money. He certainly speaks the core values of the Democratic Party, but his ability to defeat Donald Trump, I think, is another issue that we have to look at very closely. I may be wrong. I think it is surprising that Joe Biden finished virtually last, in the top group of 5, and I think it's just very, very interesting how things are evolving. What this is telling me is that people are restless. They're tired, they're upset, and they want a change. They want a major change.
No question. There's no question. You know what, Attorney Hoffler, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. I might get shocked, but it's hard to surprise me because, boy, people are restless and they are in pain and they are trying to find a way a pathway to the American dream, and they just don't see it. And so, people are struggling. Let me bring up Denise. We've been trying to get her on for a minute. Denise, what's on your mind?
Santita.
Good morning, Denise.
It's one of my main problems with this entire process is the issues that's not being addressed. Okay? We need the record as far as Pete Buttigieg. Okay? Someone needs to tell, the public, inform the public about Pete's record in South Bend, Indiana. That's not being, discussed. Now, the last time I heard was his money and involvement with the apps in Iowa. Look, come on now. You know what I'm saying? Now, another thing. Someone, maybe the national spokesperson at Push, Jonathan Jackson, can explain to the elders, I'm an elder now, okay? The difference between civics, a communist, a democratic socialist, those kinds of things, okay? Because that's, being brought forth by the now illegal, illegitimate occupant in the White House, okay? So it's a lot. Klobuchar, her record, okay? Me as a prosecutor that she prosecuted. These are the things that I sort of feel that are issues that needs to be brought forth, okay? The plans of what these candidates are running, we need to know these things, especially me.
Okay. Miss Denise, I hear you, because in fact, we had, when I first started the show back in June, over the summer, we had maybe 2 or 3 shows, Lady B, in which we brought in people from South Bend, Indiana, elected officials, to talk about Mayor Buttigieg's relationship, then Mayor Buttigieg's relationship with the black community. And, we'll do it again, but I think we're going to have to really examine everybody's record so that we can know who's running, because this is when they're going to be scrutinized. So we just thank you so much for that. Let me go to you. Okay. I think we have got Maurice. How you doing, Maurice?
Glad to be rich. Good morning, my beautiful sister.
Blessings to you. What's on your mind, Maurice?
When you mentioned South Africa this morning, there was no mention about Nelson Mandela and the 30th anniversary of his release from Robben Island on yesterday, February 11th. So I just saw one of those gotta have each other's back moments.
Oh, I love you and appreciate you for that. Thank you.
God bless you, Santita.
Blessings to you. Let me go to Sean. Sean, what's on your mind?
I just want to comment. Bernie Sanders, I think, is the obvious front runner. Last time when he went against Hillary, he had almost 50% of the vote in the primaries. Now there were 2 people running, of course, but he had a lot of support back then, and that was because he ran on populism, and that's something that Donald Trump said he was running on. Although I think that's kind of a misnomer. I think he's catered to the elites, but he says he's going for populism. I think Bernie's the obvious front runner, and I think last primary cycle when he was running against Hillary, but for the media, putting its thumb on the scale, I think he would have been the nominee back in 2016. So I think he's a really good candidate. And when we say it's hard to believe that Democrats would go for a Bernie Sanders, no, Democrats are what Bernie Sanders is talking about. You could argue that Hillary Clinton and even Barack Obama were moderates at best. They weren't progressives necessarily, but you would argue that Bernie Sanders is a progressive, and that's more representative of the actual Democrats in the party, not the DNC elitists who are more corporate Democrats. So I think that's the real pulse of the people is what Bernie is talking about.
Well, I hear you, and I think that he is really an aspirational candidate, but he's an actual candidate, and I think that if we get away from labels and look at what it is that we need, because I think that it's unfair to I think that he's being treated unfairly, but You know, that I think that also. I mean, Frank Watkins, why don't you jump on in? Because I've so many people. They call him a socialist, and then that's like a conversation ender.
Well, let's have that conversation. Just a reminder, Bernie Sanders was one of only two kind of major white elected officials that endorsed Reverend Jackson when he ran for president in 1984 and 1988. And the interesting thing about that, when he was running in 2016, someone sent me a videotape of when Bernie Sanders endorsed Reverend Jackson. He is saying, in terms of the substance, obviously the numbers change, but he is saying exactly the same thing now that he was saying 40 years ago. Bernie Sanders has been consistent in that regard. Now that he has self-identified himself as a democratic socialist. Where did you go to school, Sandy?
Oh, in the 80s. What, you talking about at college? Oh, at Howard. Oh, Whitney Young Magnet High School.
High school?
Yes, it was a public high school.
Well, I went to a public high school. That's the Democratic Socialist Program.
Oh, please explain.
He was on, anybody, well, what the two most popular programs in America are?
What are they?
And Social Security, Medicare and Social Security. Those are Democratic Socialist programs. The interstate highway system by President Eisenhower, those are Democratic Socialist highways. So we need to find what it is we're talking about. There is no such, he's not talking about nationalizing the banks and nationalizing the steel industry and so forth. He's simply talking about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He's talking about what was the case, 30 or 40 years or 50 years ago when he and Elizabeth Warren went to school. Elizabeth Warren talked about she could pay, what was it, $50 or something like that for a college course. He says the same thing. He went to Brooklyn College and paid, relatively small amount of money, which was the case then. So we need to put those things in context. He was one of Jim Hightower, the Secretary of Agriculture of Texas, was the other person who endorsed Reverend Jackson. That was a major white politician. Bernie Sanders was the mayor of Burlington, Vermont at that time. Again, just to add to the numbers, Vermont, there are a little over 11,000 black people that live in Vermont. In Iowa, there's 135,000 black people that live in Vermont, in Iowa. That's 4% of Iowa. That's 2% of Vermont. So, but he won the black vote in those two states, even though the black vote is relatively small in those states.
Thank you so much for that history lesson, Frank. Let me go to Verlon. Verlon, what's on your mind?
And how you doing to the guests? I have a critique about Bloomberg, and I have a critique about your candidates. Now, you had a lady on there that was dropping the bombs on Bloomberg with his recordings. Well, it's a recording that's being floated around on conservative media, whereas though, and I agree with him, but your side of the aisle don't. Whereas though he said, how would you like a man dressed in a woman's dress using the bathroom with your child? He passed an ordinance or a law or whatever it is that you had to use the bathrooms by your gender. How is that going to go over with progressives? And Bloomberg also did something that progressives was accusing Trump of maybe doing if he wins another term, not leaving office. He passed another law where he got a third term. He didn't want to leave office. So how is that going to go over?
Well, hold on, Verlon. Verlon, just so that you know, as someone who has lived in New York, he was not someone who was universally supported by Democrats and certainly by black people. So just so that you know that you're not dealing with, you're not talking to people who think or vote monolithically.
Okay, you told me that 2 weeks ago.
Then he became an independent, and now he's a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay, you told me that 2 weeks ago when I said that Biden was going to get most of the black vote. Now, I'm going to recant what I said because I've heard some stories about Biden. Yeah. The black vote has dropped to about 50% with Biden. That's why he's hurrying up down to those states with mostly black people to try to get that support back.
And we've tried to tell you on this show that, you needed to don't hedge your bets on that because we didn't know where this was going to go. But your final thought, Verlon? For what candidate? I've not announced that I've supported any candidate.
Personally, I'm talking about generally. When I say your candidates, I'm talking about the left, the progressive candidates, the ones that we're looking at right now. Those candidates are all flawed. Yanni wanted government to be part of every aspect of our life. America's not there. That's why he's gone. Elizabeth Warren has been proven to be a liar. She lied about being a Native American and got money that was supposed to go to minorities to get her degree. She lied about her kid being in public school. He was in private school, and she lied about her pregnancy. She's fading because people are finding out about her. And if you want to talk about Klobuchar, the same thing is going to happen to Klobuchar that happened to Kamala Harris. When that prosecuting record comes out, she's going to sit with the black community. And you want to talk about Buttigieg? It was somebody, I think you're talking to that wants to.
Verlon, let me ask you this. How do you feel about President Trump and his record on excluding black people from living in the housing that he constructed? How do you feel about that?
That was way back in the 70s.
No, but we're talking about what happened with Verlon, when we're looking at, hold on, hon. And I want Latasha to jump in, and Robert, everyone, please jump in. Stay right there, Verlon. I don't need to speak. I've got my guest who can. Latasha, you go.
So I think, one of the things that I'm hearing from Verlon, I'm hearing him talk about, and thank you for calling, I'm hearing you talk about what the flaws are in the candidates. Now, unless we get ready to elect Jesus, we don't find a flaw with every single person that is running. And I think for us to the kind of analysis around saying that to hold one accountable to say that this is your past, but we're not going to have the past of others, because we don't have to go to the past with President Trump. That he has been openly aligned with racist policies, has created racist policies and anti-Muslim bans, has also been very open with his association with white nationalists. So I think that's full stop. That I think he has certainly proved himself, not even from the housing from the 70s, but proved himself to be an open white nationalist and a racist. The second thing that I do want to raise, though, and I think that this is a critical part, well, I actually agree with you around the candidates. All the candidates have flaws. I absolutely agree with that. Mm-hmm. I think that's why fundamentally this is going to be another election. What I think that is distinctively different, that Bernie Sanders is doing different from every other candidate, is that Bernie Sanders' campaign is not just around him as a personality. That part of what we have seen is we've gotten caught up in these last 20 years, Obama included, that we've been looking for the particular candidate, that our elections have been, it's a critique for me, that I think elections have been far more too candidate-centered and not people-centered. Yeah. The difference with Bernie Sanders' campaign, in which why people are saying, well, why are folks voting for this old man, why are young people voting for this old man, is because not only does he have a base of support that are not just following him because he's Bernie Sanders, and he's the Bernie Sanders superstar, but he has a populist agenda. He has a specific agenda that everyday people are dealing with, one around health care. The truth of the matter is health care is killing the pockets of working class Americans. Secondly, he talks specifically around the economic structure in this country. People are gravitating to that more than they are to him as a candidate. And so part of this discussion is that we're continuing to have this discussion. I think that it reminds me of Blockbuster and Netflix. You know, part of the reason why Netflix and Blockbuster do the same exact thing. Blockbuster had brick and mortar companies on every single corner. And what did they do? They provided access for people to see movies in their home. What Netflix came along and did and said, we're going to provide the same service, but we're going to package it different where people can actually get access from the comfort of their home. Blockbuster didn't change their strategy, and they no longer exist. It is the same thing right now that we've got to really become a little bit more thoughtful around what we're looking in this election cycle. This will not be the election cycle. It's as if we're waiting until one of the Democratic candidates run into a genie and he magically turns them into the super candidate. That's not going to happen. This election cycle is going to be ultimately driven by how people see, one, not just the anti-Trump, because I think what we're hearing voters say, and I think we're seeing that in the Bernie, with a lot of the support that Bernie Sanders is getting, it is just not enough to beat Trump.
Yeah.
That to beat Trump is one thing, but when people are working 2 and 3 jobs and they're not able to make their rent, that they're not able to pay their bills, folks are concerned about that. The second thing that people are concerned about is how the health care, like how their health care costs has risen drastically, how this president has actually tried to strip ACA, how southern states have literally not decided not to expand Obamacare, and as a result, we've got hospitals that are closed where people now have to drive over 100 miles. That is real everyday issues that people are dealing with. And at the end of the day, the labels, whether it's capitalism, socialism, Democrat, Republican, at the end of the day, people are going to vote on what is in their best interest. And so part of what we're hearing in the political pundits space is around, oh, wow, they can dismiss Bernie, they can dismiss the other candidates all they want, but ultimately, we've got to listen to what people are saying. People want something different. It is not good enough just to say you're going to beat Trump. So that's, I think we've got to have a larger discussion around it. While that is a key piece, and that's going to be a key driver on who can beat Trump, I think a lot of that narrative is being driven by the media, and that's not what I'm hearing when I'm on the ground with folks.
Not at all. I'm going to give everybody less than a minute. If you could just give me about 30 seconds to close. And I promise you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, we're going to talk about parental leave another time, but I had to get you in on this conversation. Attorney Hoffler, your closing thought?
Change is probably going to come one way or another. Either the Democratic Party's got to embrace one candidate that everybody has to stand behind. I do think it is in part about beating Donald Trump, but I also do believe that people are in pain. So the last speaker, I agree with what she said, but I think fundamentally, we have to have a candidate who's going to be able to beat Donald Trump. I think that this country is in such pain. People are in such pain on so many levels that change has got to come. And the only way it's going to happen, I think, for the Democratic Party is if we align strongly against one candidate, and stop all, one candidate who can beat Donald Trump. And if that candidate is Bernie Sanders, all the other fractions out there need to align and support Bernie Sanders. If it's not, then whoever it is, we don't need to go to the polls, ultimately, holding on to candidates who are not on the ballot. And that's what I see happening with the Democratic Party, or staying home because your candidate didn't make it. We are in a crisis. People are in pain. Change has got to come. If we think we can make it to the next level of this country, we can't have thousands and thousands of people who are compromised because they can't go to the doctor and get health care. We cannot have that. So change is going to come, and if it's Bernie Sanders, then that's who it'll be. But I just think that we got to look at who can beat Donald Trump. I really do. I think that's important.
Well, you know what, Robert Patillo and Reverend Frank Watkins, it's not that I'm discriminating against the guys, but you all didn't get a chance to have your final say today. But you stay with me on Facebook for a few more minutes. I'm going to talk with everybody so we can wrap this up because we are talking about New Hampshire and the 2020 election. Everybody, we're here. We urge you to call 1-866-OUR-VOTE. 1-866-OUR-VOTE to find out if you are still registered. They've purged 34 million voters from the rolls since 2004. And we want to make sure that even if you are one, you can get re-registered immediately. Go to vote.org. Vote.org and find out the same. All right, everybody, as we're giving away tickets, continue to meet us over on Facebook and continue to meet us here at 773-763-9278 so that we can give these tickets away to this big event, the NBA All-Star event with Reverend Jackson and Shaquille O'Neal. But right now, I want you to call in to win 2 tickets to see An American in Paris at the Drury Lane Theater in Oak Brook On Thursday, March 26th at 8 p.m., Escape to the City of Light with Drury Lane Theater's production of An American in Paris, now playing through March 29th, based on the Academy Award-winning movie. It's fabulous, everybody. It's an enchanting musical. Gershwin's biggest hits, I Got Rhythm. They can't take that away from me. For more information or tickets, or to buy tickets, call 630-530-0111, 630-530-0111, or visit drurylane.com. Contests running on WCPT 820 are open to listeners 18 or older and residents of the greater Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana area. One entry per person, one winner per household. Void where prohibited by law. Listeners may only win or qualify to win once every 30 days. Complete rules are available on our website, WCPT820.com. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Okay, let's do this real
quick. For people with heart disease, asthma, and cancer,
really
the flu can hit hard. If you're not feeling well, take your temperature frequently with the Exergen Temporal Scanner.
That's what
AP News. Good morning. I'm Ed.
Okay.
The Democratic candidates in their campaigns are moving on from New Hampshire. The primary district, Bernie Sanders is
Here you are, babe.
Popular vote in Iowa and the victory tonight.
So got that out.
We're going to South Carolina.
He's got it.
Okay, so we can bring them up real quick and let them say what they've got to say, and then we can move on. Okay. Latasha Brown. Latasha. Reverend Watkins. Girl, yeah. I'm just trying to say goodbye to my Facebook Live, listeners and viewers. So that and Reverend Watkins, so they can make some you can give them some closing thoughts, because boy, I think this is really, Latasha, it seems like we might be moving toward a brokered convention. I don't want to spend too much time on that, because I want you to come back so that we can talk about that, because if that does happen, we certainly need to strategize, right?
Absolutely, and I agree with you. I think that is where I think that there is, we've got to be honest around what is happening here. I think that there is the Democratic establishment does not want Bernie Sanders. I'm not even clear if they want Elizabeth Warren. The way that I've been seeing them being marginalized, and even it's really amazing. I'm looking at TV and I'm listening, and I'm hearing how the biggest loss was Elizabeth Warren, when she was never the favorite to win, but here that Biden comes in after her. And so there is a particular narrative that is pushed. We've seen that with black candidates. We've seen that in the past with the Reverend Jesse Jackson campaign, where there are folks that are in the Democratic establishment that decide that there are certain candidates that they don't want. And so it becomes this narrative, we're driving this narrative, oh, they're weak, they're not doing well. Yeah. And so I think what's interesting, I think the candidate, and I've not decided to support either candidate at this point, but what is interesting is the candidate that over and over again is, oh, he can't win, it's a fluke, but who has been the most continuous in terms of building their support. And quite frankly, I think the candidate that has a base has been Bernie Sanders. And I think part of it is because I do think that there are money interests who have also been very reflective of the same kind of money interests in the Republican Party, right, that are afraid to death of someone that is actually talking about structural change around the economics in this country. So I think we've got to get beyond this idea of looking for the perfect candidate and looking for the sage on the white horse. Didn't we get enough of that with the Obama campaign? That at this point, we really need to think about what candidate, I always use the Janet Jackson rule, what have you done for me lately? What candidate are we going to support that's really going to fundamentally change the nature of America, where that working class folks, that if you work, you should eat. If you work and you're working a job every day, that people should be able to afford their housing. And so we've got to have a reordering, regardless of what people, we've got to ask hard questions around education and around health care and around the economics in this country. It's not good enough for Trump to stop around, oh, look, the employment numbers are high. It's really interesting. The report that came out, I just read today an article around how there's 1 million less jobs, that black people have 1 million less jobs, like it is dropping. And so we've got to have a critical analysis to really be sophisticated enough to move beyond this idea of who's the likable candidate and really lean into
who is fundamentally going to push forward an agenda that will change the quality of our lives.
Frank Watkins, you have heard about electability, and you lived through that. And it seems like when I look at Bernie Sanders, who jumped into the race in 2016 because Elizabeth Warren, who progressives wanted to run in 2016, she said, no, I won't do it. Does this sound familiar, Reverend Watkins? And then in order to have a progressive in the race, he said, look, I'm just going to do it. Didn't Jesse Jackson do that in 84?
He certainly did. Bold leadership and new direction was the theme, and that's what we're seeing in both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. If you're talking about big change, structural change, you're only talking about two candidates. That's Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Even if they win, it still falls on us to push them, to continue to push them to do what they have promised to do. And if some of the others turn out to be the president, we have to push them too, even harder to do what it is the people need. Both parties have failed, the American people. They have not provided them with their basic needs in terms of health care and housing and jobs and so forth. So both parties have failed, which means that a whole lot of people are hurting. And as a result of their hurting, and they see all these politicians talking, they're extremely mad. And in 2016, they turned that madness and said, we're going to try Trump because he seemed to be mad. What is little known is that 12%, the second choice of 12% of Donald Trump's supporters was Bernie Sanders, because he's mad about it too, and he's expressing his anger, and people identify that, and they identified that he's willing to fight. Now, the difference, of course, is that Bernie is an authentic person. Trump is a con man.
Look, I just think it's important that all of this stuff come out and we begin to have these conversations. No one has been more supportive of the conversations that we try to have than you, Reverend Watkins. And look, I got my sister friend, my sister girl, Latasha Brown, who pushes me on these conversations every single day. And I thank you for that, because, we need to hear what we're thinking. There's a wonderful article. I'm going to pull it up and spread it out on my social media, in which Latasha Brown is in the New York Times, Frank Watkins, talking about what black voters want, and particularly how we feel about Bloomberg. We're going to talk about that tomorrow and pull up this audio, Latasha Brown, because, I'm seeing him in the campaign. I'm seeing him rise in the national polls, number one. And then I'm seeing him in all these commercials with President Obama. I mean, Biden, who was his vice president, didn't even do that. I mean, it could be very confusing.
I've got to run, Sandy.
I love you, Reverend Frank Watkins. I just want to keep you for a hot second. Latasha Brown, I mean, help me. What should be our takeaway from what we saw last night and just moving forward? Because we're going to talk about Bloomberg tomorrow.
We will talk. What I will say is we're not new to this. We're true to this. I think what we saw last night is what we saw. And while there's all kinds of pundits, I think there was a couple of things that I'll just note real quick, and then I think it opens up the conversation of what's next, where we go from there. But a couple of things we saw last night. The bottom line is we saw Bernie Sanders win, point blank, full stop, period. And so it's interesting. I was looking at the shows because I do some appearances on some of the shows, and I was looking at the shows, and I changed from channel to channel, and it was very, very difficult for several of the political pundits, particularly that come out of traditional kind of being the Democratic strategist, would never actually just say that Bernie Sanders won. There was always some caveat to it. So one, but the truth of the matter is Bernie Sanders came out of the first two primaries as a winner, and particularly last night. I think he got a decisive win. Secondly, I do think that it is interesting, the part around sexism, is that both of the women, both Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren, were ranked higher, came out higher than Biden. But in spite of that, Like the very thing that would kill both of them. In spite of that, both of them, the narrative continues to be they can't win, they can't win, they can't win. And I find that interesting that the narrative is that they can't win, although they performed higher than Biden, but there's still this narrative around Biden. I think the third thing is it's really interesting. I think Buttigieg has a strong, I think Buttigieg, looking at Buttigieg, regardless of what he will do in his next election cycle, because I don't think that he's going to do well on Super Tuesday, and I don't think that he's going to do well in South Carolina. But the fact of the matter is, I think that his candidacy and his rise in the candidacy is saying something. There is a particular kind of model that people are looking for. What I think that Buttigieg election is really more reflective of is a different kind of moderate conservative Democratic candidate that people are looking for. I think Buttigieg is actually pulling from the Biden vote. That people are looking for someone moderate and conservative Democratic voters. They themselves are looking for someone newer, have a younger, have a newer edge, and literally talking about something different. Even regardless of what my belief is around Buttigieg, because I think in some way I don't support his campaign because I think he's very opportunistic and he doesn't have a really strong race analysis, in my opinion. But anyway, I do think that his showing is saying something to the Democratic establishment, and I'm not so sure they're getting that message as they're continuing to try to push Biden as a candidate. I think the fourth thing that comes out of this right here is the positioning of Biden. That here it is a Biden finished fifth, and we can talk about what's going to happen on Super Tuesday and other places, but he's going into South Carolina as a wounded candidate. And then we've got this other element out there that we're looking at with Buttigieg and even Steyer. I actually think Steyer is going to do surprisingly well in South Carolina. But we're seeing Bloomberg, which is spending millions and millions of dollars on commercials. The bottom line, and I keep continuing to say this, is that we can't keep looking at the election like Blockbuster when we're in a Netflix era. We can't look at this election just based on who is the most charismatic candidate. That we have shown, we've seen that we've been seeing this election and these candidates for the last year, and none of them have emerged as the candidate. That's not going to happen. Literally, it is going to be a matter of who can mobilize a coalition base of Democratic voters who are excited about not just their candidacy, but what they represent. And secondly, while I do think that it is going to be a critical issue around beating Trump, that the whole idea of beating Trump is not good enough. That is what we're seeing with Buttigieg's performance, with Bernie Sanders' performance, with Elizabeth's performance, I think we're seeing those performances based on the electorate continues to say beating Trump is absolutely a key component, but that by itself is not good enough. And so I think that the Biden campaign hung their hat on that a little bit too much, and it's backfiring. And so we really got to be able to adjust before we've got 8 months. We've got to be able to adjust so that we can move forward in this election cycle. I do believe that we're going to have a voter convention, but ultimately, I think that there is something that voters are telling us that we don't want to hear, and we're going to have to ultimately deal with that.
Amen to that. I mean, amen. Oh, wow. It's wow. Okay. Well, everybody, I'm not able to get back on here. Okay. Well, you know what? We're going to have to let you all go, but that is very real. We have to really, really, really look at these candidates and make sure that we are respected. We're about to go off the air. Make sure that we are respected and make sure that we are protected. And the only way you can really know that is don't give your vote away. Don't give your vote away. Make sure that these people earn your vote. And you need to get to know them. You need to understand who they are, what they stand for, and make sure that they are advocating for you. For you. Make sure that happens. So tomorrow, I guess we will be talking about Mayor Bloomberg, and we'll see how that all goes. So much to talk about in this time, and boy, what a blessing it is to be on Talk Radio with you. I love you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless. Yeah, it went off, so I wasn't able to do that.
It went now, right?
Huh?
Now you can talk. Yeah, talk.
No, she's gone now, hon.
Oh, okay. I was just concerned.
No, I was concerned because I was trying to wrap up the show. She was waiting for me, so we have to until I'm off. People need to know I need you all somebody here, okay? So we can get this done because she was just holding, and they were waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't do that. Remember I told you this is a split second decision kind of job, okay? So we have to move things quickly. All right. All right. No, it happens. It's live, honey. It's all live. It's all live. It's all live, and it's all love. So let me call her back so I can thank her for being here. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right.